Have you ever stopped to think about the world that's right under your feet? I'm not talking about subways or cables. I'm talking about a hidden, revolutionary system that literally made modern city life possible. We're going to dive into the wild story of how a crisis, a smell so bad it was unbearable, forced London to build an underground masterpiece of engineering that changed, well, pretty much everything.
Just listen to this. That's not just someone complaining about a bad smell, is it? That is a genuine cry for help from the summer of 1858. Can you imagine a stench so powerful, so unforgettable, that it brought the most powerful city in the world to its knees? This quote, it really captures the raw desperation of a city that was right on the brink.
And this fear, it was everywhere. It even showed up in popular cartoons. The River Thames, which should have been the city's lifeblood, was now being drawn as Death himself, rowing a boat on the water. And this wasn't a joke. It wasn't just satire. This was how people felt. The river itself was seen as the killer.
So, what exactly happened that summer? Well, the event became known as the Great Stink, and it was the final straw, the thing that finally forced everyone to act. Okay, so picture this. It was a perfect storm. An insane heat wave was literally baking all the raw sewage just festering on the riverbanks. The smell became so overpowering that politicians in the Houses of Parliament, which are right on the river, they couldn't even work. They desperately tried soaking their curtains in chemicals to block it out, but it did absolutely nothing. The problem was way too big to just cover up. But here's the thing. The Great Stink didn't just happen out of nowhere. It was the totally predictable result of a city at its absolute breaking point. So let's take a look at what was really going on that turned the mighty Thames into little more than an open sewer.
First off, the sheer number of people. In just 50 years, London's population more than doubled. I mean, the city was exploding, but its infrastructure was basically still stuck in the Middle Ages. More people meant way more waste, and all of it had to go somewhere.
And this is the fatal flaw in the whole system. You've got 200,000 overflowing cesspools, you've got ancient leaky sewers, and everything, all of it, just emptied straight into the River Thames, the exact same river that was the main source of drinking water for the city. London was literally methodically poisoning itself. Now, to make things even more complicated, the science was just wrong. The leading scientific idea at the time was something called miasma theory. The belief was that it was the bad smells themselves, the bad air, that actually caused diseases like cholera. So naturally, the establishment was focused on getting rid of the smell, not the actual contamination.
And this set up a huge debate. While all the important people were chasing this miasma theory, one physician, a Dr. John Snow, had already proven that cholera spread through contaminated water. But he was mostly ignored, seen as an outlier. And this is the great irony of the whole story. Driven by the wrong theory, the fear of bad air, they ended up building the perfect solution for the real problem.
With Parliament literally choking on the stench of the city, the government finally gave the green light to a radical new plan. A plan that was the vision of one man, an engineer named Sir Joseph Bazalgette. Bazalgette's plan was just brilliant, simple in its concept but absolutely staggering in its scale. First, he'd build these massive intercepting sewers that would catch all the waste before it even got to the Thames. Second, since London is so flat, he'd use giant steam-powered pumping stations to keep it all moving. And third, he would pipe it all miles downstream, far away from the city's water supply. The plan was approved. Now came the unbelievably difficult part, actually building it. And let me tell you, this wasn't just digging a few ditches. This was one of the greatest civil engineering projects the world had ever seen.
Think about this number for just a second. 318 million bricks. And every single one was laid by hand, deep underground, in this complex web of tunnels, all while one of the world's busiest cities just went about its business right on top.
And they used huge amounts of a revolutionary new material, Portland cement. You see, Bazalgette wasn't just building for the 1860s. He was building this thing to last for ages.
The financial cost was just immense, equivalent to billions in today's money. It was a huge chunk of the national budget. But that just goes to show you how critical this project was. The very survival of the city was on the line.
And yet, in the middle of all this gritty, down-and-dirty engineering, they created real beauty. The pumping stations, like Abbey Mills, they were designed like cathedrals. This quote just nails the wonderful absurdity of it all. Some of the most stunning architecture in London, built for the most foul purposes.
So the project was finished. The smell was gone, but the true impact, the real legacy, was so much bigger than just cleaner air. This unseen system would completely revolutionize city life itself.
This timeline really tells the whole story. For decades, these devastating cholera pandemics just kept happening, and then they stop. The last major outbreak in 1866, it happened in an area of London that wasn't connected to Bazalgette's new system yet. It was the final tragic proof that Dr. John Snow had been right all along. It was the water.
And the positive effects just cascaded from there. With a sewer system that could handle the waste, the flush toilet finally became a practical reality. Clean water could be piped into homes, streets were properly paved, and for the first time ever, living in a dense city was no longer a death sentence. London's system became the blueprint for cities all over the world.
Let this sink in for a second. Forget about wonder drugs or surgical breakthroughs. This one massive feat of public works engineering, this hidden network of brick tunnels, saved more lives than any single medical advance of the entire 19th century. Which brings us to today. The system Bazalgette built is still there. It's his hidden inheritance, a silent, efficient servant to millions of Londoners every single day. But the system's success created a new kind of problem. Because it's so invisible, it's easy for us to completely forget it's even there. As this quote says, we've become disconnected from the basic processes that keep our cities alive. We flush the toilet, and it all just disappears. We never stop to think about where away really is.
And that out-of-sight, out-of-mind way of thinking has real consequences. While Bazalgette's original sewers are still the backbone of London's system today, the Victorian solution of just moving the problem downstream has created a whole new set of ecological challenges for our generation to solve.
Which leaves us with a final thought. They faced a crisis that was impossible to ignore, a smell you couldn't escape, and they met it with a monumental but invisible solution. It really makes you wonder, what are our great stinks today? What are the critical, invisible problems in our climate, our data, our society that we're failing to see simply because we can't smell them?